everyone, I'm Megan Sullivan and welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing part 3 of my series, Can a 4X Strategy Noob Survive 100 Turns? In Civilization 6, things are looking a tiny bit dicey, but not too bad. We've managed to survive 50 turns so far by playing as Sparta, led by, as you can see, Queen Gorgo of Sparta, famously married to King Leonidas of Thermopylae fame. So I'm going to go ahead and continue the game. And today what I thought I would do is talk to you about the history of Sparta, because I think it sort of informs you on why I'm making the strange decisions that I am. Sparta was famously a military state, and I'm going to focus a lot on the military aspect of things. But the funny thing about Sparta is it was paradoxically both a very aggressive city-state and a very cautious city-state. And that has to do with their weird and wacky history, which I think would be interesting to talk about today. I started talking about it in the first episode of this series, but then I got sidetracked. So I thought you guys would enjoy a history lesson as you see me make all sorts of goofy mistakes while playing Civilization 6 as a noob. The first thing we're going to do, however, is give this unit orders. Let's see. I don't have any warriors near Sparta, and I feel like since we have a slinger that is being produced in Argos, we should go ahead and move him a little bit closer to, back towards Sparta. Let's see. We do have a scout, though. Let's see, which way do we want to take the scout? Let's go to these fields of gold here, these lovely grain fields here, and we've got warriors in Greece skirting alongside the borders of Barcelona. I still can't get over the fact that ancient Sparta is not that far away from medieval Barcelona. That's kind of odd, but at any rate, we're going to move this warrior down here, see what's over there. Let's see, this scout can continue moving. They're a traitor, so we're going to leave them alone. Uh-oh. There is a warrior here, but luckily he is not hostile so far as I can see. We'll just chill here, I guess, for now. We will fortify the scout, though, just in case. I'm a little nervous. And we'll continue. So today we're trying to get to turn 75. So we're going to go from turn 50 to turn 75, if possible. So here we are near Argos. Argos and Sparta were traditionally rival city-states. They were actually sworn enemies. And this started to really heat up in the 6th century BCE, but it wasn't always that way. Sparta wasn't always a giant military camp. They weren't always these super soldiers, and they didn't always hate Argos. And to understand how that could be, you know, if you've ever read the Iliad and the Odyssey, you're like, how come Sparta isn't portrayed as a military camp in those stories? Well, because they weren't a military camp yet. In fact, Sparta, which is referred to in ancient Bronze Age sources as Lacedaemon, Lacedaemonia, there it is. It's a mouthful. But the Lacedaemonians were the ancient people that lived near classical era Sparta. Not right where that later collection of villages would be, but rather a little south and southeast of there. About almost 10 years ago, there was a huge palace that was discovered, Bronze Age palace that was discovered not far from Sparta. And it had all sorts of treasures and linear B tablets. Linear B is the writing system of the Bronze Age Greeks that was decoded only in the 1950s. But it finally the code was finally cracked. And what's interesting is the archaic Greeks, the classical Greeks of later centuries that you know from Herodotus, Thucydides, all the way up until late antiquity with like Plutarch, none of them could read the ancient Bronze Age texts. And there's a story in Plutarch that a king of Sparta, a famous king of Sparta, Agesilaus, He actually gave a N00b tablet to an Egyptian pharaoh as a gift because he thought it was really neat. You know, these beautiful, squiggly, ancient lines seem to be on this very valuable piece of work. And, you know, he gave that to an Egyptian pharaoh, but no one knew how to read it, which is kind of funny. But we do now, and it tells us a lot about the gods that these early Greeks worshipped and their palace complexes. So in Bronze Age Greece, and the Bronze Age, by the way, was from 3000 BCE to about 1100 BCE. This was a time of great progress in civilization. People had occupied Greece for like 200,000 years. Oh, hey, we learned irrigation. All right, that could be useful. We should probably do a bit of research. But speaking of technological advances, 200,000 years ago is when we have evidence of humans living in and around Greece, but it's not really until the technological advance of agriculture and animal husbandry around 11,000 BCE that civilization really gets cooking, where these very advanced civilizations start appearing in places like Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, and of course Egypt, and in Western Anatolia, so modern-day Turkey. You get these wonderfully advanced civilizations that are starting to pop up between 10,000 BCE and 1000 BCE. And the Bronze Age we're talking about, 3000 BCE to 1000 BCE, there's some real advances in Greece in particular. It starts with the Minoans. You know, speaking of writing systems, we're going to learn to write. I feel like I really need to do that. And then this guy needs to move. But the Minoans on the island of Crete, the big Greek island of Crete, they're very advanced. They have these advanced palace complexes that were sort of bureaucratic centers. They had their own writing system, Linear A, but we haven't been able to decode that writing system yet. Linear B is based off of it, but we haven't been able to decipher Linear A because it's actually not the Greek language, it's a different language. And so scholars are still struggling a little bit with Linear A. Hey, my progress towards political philosophy has advanced considerably. That's interesting because Sparta didn't care that much for political philosophy. that was purely Athenian, right? That was purely the late Archaic, early Classical period of Athens. But the Minoans were a very advanced civilization. They were smack in the middle of the Mediterranean between three major continents, so Africa, Asia, and Europe. And so they could cherry pick the best of those particular civilizations and advance their own. However, they were weakened considerably by a huge volcanic explosion sometime between 1700 and 1500 BCE that substantially weakened them. And later on, they would be invaded by a Indo-European Greek-speaking people that we today call the Messenians, although that's like a 19th century term. Homer refers to them as the Achaeans. And in Hittite records from the Hittite Empire in the Bronze Age, they're actually called the Ahiyawa. So we know that these people definitely existed, and they liked the Cretan way of doing things. They're like, hey, your palaces are really cool and your way of doing things is really cool, but we're the better warriors. So we're going to take you over, and then we're going to take over mainland Greece and settle down there and build these cool palaces at places like Mycenae. If you've ever been there, it's really, really cool. If not, I highly recommend going there and checking it out for yourself. Why am I delaying this? Choose production already. Come on, Megan. I really need to get my culture points up. I don't think I have a monument yet. I should really do that, although I'm still trepid about barbarians or neighbors coming to attack Sparta, but really we're do a monument that to ourselves that we survived over 50 turns in civilization. 6. So we have 6 turns for our monument to be built. Anything else? Is there any money? Can I purchase a tile? Should I purchase a tile? Funny enough, the Spartans in later Archaic and Classical period didn't have coins. That wasn't until later in antiquity. They thumbed their noses at money for reasons I'll explain in a bit. Thinking. This has a nice bit of production here and some food. It's not very appealing, apparently. I'm not good at this, guys. So if you're screaming at your monitor to either do this or don't, or, you know, invest in this tile, I can't hear you. I'm sorry. This is all pre-recorded. But this seems like it's only one. Oh, this seems, oh no, this is already part of our territory. I don't know. I kind of want to more safely connect Argos and Sparta here, even though they hate each other in the classical era. I don't know. Maybe it's a waste of money. Maybe we'll just naturally sort of do this on their own. I can't tell. I'm not good. I'm not good at this game. I'm new to it. I don't know what to do. Jeez Louise, this isn't that hard. How much money do I have? So I have some money. You know what? We'll just do this. Why not? We're a little sort of kind of rich. We can afford it. But at any rate, the ancient Bronze Age Mysidians that were known as the Achaeans in Homer and were familiar to like the Hittite Empire. The Egyptians also had a name for them. It starts with a D. I can't remember, but that also makes it into Homer. So Homer's sources weren't too bad, even though he was writing in the 9th or 8th century BCE. I think the 8th century BCE, when writing is reintroduced into Greece. And of course, the epics he sings about and written down at that time are much older than that. But at any rate, we were talking about the Mycenaeans and their advanced palace complexes at places like Thebes, Argos, Mycenae, and around the area of Sparta. And Sparta at this time was called Lacedaemonia. Everything seemed to be going great around the Mediterranean for quite a while, and then something goes terribly, terribly wrong. Starting around 1177 BCE, it feels like there's a lot of disasters that sort of culminate all together. We have evidence of a 200 or even 300-year-long drought that starts around this time. We know of a catastrophic earthquake or a series of earthquakes that caused an ancient Bronze Age harbor just south of Sparta to disappear under the waves. Sorry, I banged my desk there. We need to order this warrior. Yes, major victory. Just want to make sure. Get him. Yeah. Okay. We know of an invading sea peoples that menaced ancient Egypt, the Levant. The Hittite Empire fell at this time, and suddenly the palace structures on mainland Greece started to be abandoned. Some of the last records we have from Bronze Age Greece talk about sending people to the coast to watch the coasts, implying that there are invaders coming from the sea. So something was definitely going on. Scholars cannot agree on what, but there was a rapid decline and basically a whole systems collapse around the entire Mediterranean, starting in 1177 BCE and kind of ending in 1100. And from 1100 BCE until 800 BCE is what are called the Greek Dark Ages. We lose all this information. The complicated writing system that the Bronze Age Greeks wrote in, that writing system got lost because it was made up of like 90 symbols and was very hard to read and write. Philip II is judging us and being rude. He's saying, how can you let barbarians run amok? Yeah, bye. Where are you, dude? Oh, I see. There's barbarian spearmen near Barcelona. Philip of Spain wants us to take care of them for him. You're not even subtle, dude. I see what you did there. Your Grace, I worry about the happiness of our citizens. I would advise that we investigate a means of increasing their contentment. I will get to that in a second. Hey, we learned to write, though. They can write a formal complaint to us. So that's cool, I guess. And again, I apologize for making stupid mistakes. It's really hard to give a history lesson and try to concentrate on this game, but I'm going to prioritize history lesson because history is cool. And this is history in games. All right, opening the technology tree. Where do we want to go from here? Now the Spartans can write. So they kind of, funny enough, if we're talking about writing and discovering writing, the art of writing is lost at the end of the Bronze Age and will not be rediscovered until the 8th century BCE, when the Greeks adopt the Phoenician alphabet, which was much more accessible to people. It only had like 35, 36 letters, and then the ancient Greeks are like, we can work with that. And then they geniusly added vowels, so it was even easier to read. Now, having said that, ancient Greek writing, or like the ancient Greek language, is really difficult and really hard to read in and of itself, but it's definitely easier than, say, Linear A and Linear B. But what happens to all the people affected by the system's collapse at the end of the Bronze Age? Well, they start abandoning the palaces. They're no longer able to maintain that sophisticated system. It was a bureaucratic center where there was trade, where there was, there was a king, a Wanax, and there were different councils and everything. It was a really organized civilization that occupied mainland Greece. Sorry, give me 1 second here. I'm writing now what I want to do. We could do horseback riding. Spartans weren't really big on horseback riding, though. They would become hoplites. So they would go a lot of places on foot. We could do ironworking and honor the Iron Age, in which the hoplite phalanx actually starts getting going. It unlocks swordsmen. That could be useful. Is money useful at all in Sparta? Not in classical Sparta, but other places. Ooh, military tactics. So military tactics is, pikemen. We have to learn mathematics. Ugh, math, my nemesis. What do I want to do? You know what? We've already kind of here. It should be pretty fast. Let's do ironworking. Okay. So at any rate, people still exist, obviously, in Greece, but they sort of the population actually drops in the Greek Dark Ages, and everyone's just sort of goes back to smaller communities. That is until the invasion of a people from the north of Greece, or northern Greece, known as the Dorians. We don't have like totally direct evidence of Doric invaders. Invaders. Sorry, major defeat. We're gonna back up a little bit. All right, we might have to get another warrior down here at some point, but this guy's way over here, and I want him to continue going forth. Although maybe you should go back to Argos. You know what? I don't like Sparta and Argos being totally undefended. You know, we're gonna make our way back. This is probably not the most efficient way to do things, but here we are. But there is an invasion of Dorians. They come down from the north of Greece, and they start settling in southern Greece, which is called the Peloponnese. They tried to settle in Athens as well, but Bronze Age Athens was well defended. They have what is called the Acropolis, which is a big, giant limestone rock. If you've ever been to Athens, you know what I'm talking about. It's where the Parthenon is, and it's this giant ancient citadel that was easy to defend. And so the Athenians were able to stave off the Dorian invaders, but other places not so much. And so the Dorians ended up near the ancient site of Lacedaemonia, and they settled in a collection of villages known as Sparta. Later on, the villages would increase by one. So there was a place called Amyklai, just south of Sparta, that would also get introduced into the polis, the city-state of Sparta. Now, what's interesting is that Sparta, for practical reasons, didn't have walls like other cities. And the reason is because Sparta, again, wasn't centralized like Athens, right? Athens, like the Athenians, in times of distress, could go to the high city, the Acropolis, and fend off enemies from there. But Sparta were these scattered villages, and so it wasn't financially practical or geographically practical to have walls, especially with Amyklai so far to the south. But they did have one major natural defense, which I think really could help them. And that was that Sparta was ringed by mountain ranges. To the west is the famous Taygetos mountain range. And then to the east was Mount Parnon. And then the north and south, there were also mountain ranges. And I don't know where I want you to go. Do I want you to go further afield, or do I need you? Yeah, see, barbarian galleries, you might need to go back to Sparta. Can I get you to go back to Sparta? Yeah, let's... we can't do anything right now. Okay, you need to go back that way, because I don't know where these barbarians are coming from or what they're going to do. Barbarians approach, need more housing. I got to pay more attention to that. Need more amenities. Yeah, I am definitely not playing this very wisely, and I apologize, guys. But we're gonna get through this. We're gonna muddle through this. We're almost to turn 60. So, what are you guys doing? I don't know if you're gonna... Oh, early empire. All right. With your people enthused to try early empire, government and social policy changes are free this turn. Okay, let's change our policies, I guess. I do like that they have +5 when fighting barbarians, who I am mostly concentrating on fighting. I don't want to pick a fight with my allies right now or my neighbors. +1 faith and +1 gold in the capital. Let's see. Wild card policies. We have 2 great general points. What else? So land surveys. Reduces the cost of purchasing a tile by 20%. That seems useful. Doubles experience for recon units. Maritime industries. We're not really going to concentrate on that. We're Sparta. So Sparta's landlocked. It is about 27 miles away from the ocean, which is why they were never keen to have a giant navy. They left that to the Athenians to their detriment. Boy, do the Spartans and Athenians really get into it between their army and Athens' navy. Which, if you're familiar with the Peloponnesian War, you already know the story, but we'll get to that as well. Colonization, 50% production towards settlers. Ooh, I kind of like this, because we need to expand and keep land out of our... do I want to change anything else? Production towards ancient classical melee anti-cavalry and ranged units. That could be useful. You know, I'm going to keep this, though. I like having the edge in battle. All right. Maybe we'll buy more land. I kind of want to keep this, though. Because I'm always fighting. I feel like I'm always fighting people. But you know what? This might actually be smarter. I don't know, you guys. I just know that Sparta comes out of the Dark Ages as Dorian. And they're Dorian, and they have their collection of villages. And everything seems fine, only it's not. Starting in the 8th century BCE, there's a ton of internal strife in Sparta. And part of it might have to do with their bizarre political system. Sparta was weird. They didn't just have one king, they had 2 kings, the Agiad and the Eurypontid. We don't know exactly why they had 2 kings. The Spartans do this whole legend about civics lesson. Here we go. This is perfectly in line with what I'm talking about. So our civics tree, code of laws, state workforce. What is state workforce? So state workforce gives us a chance to talk about the Helots, the slaves of Sparta. And oligarchy. Yes, we want, because this is 1, 2, where can we go from here? Sparta famously had a mixed political system. And then military training? We could build an encampment, which is very Spartan. Defensive tactics. Be the target of a declaration of war. Build 2 campus districts. Should we probably have a religion at some point? Mysticism. You know what? We're just going to do this for now. Okay. So at any rate, Sparta is really interesting. They have 2 kings. Their legend states that these 2 kings are the descendants of Heracles, aka Hercules, the ultimate strongman of ancient Greece. Everyone wanted to somehow be associated with Hercules. He is one of the oldest legendary figures, so one of the oldest heroes in the ancient Greek pantheon. And in fact, he himself may be based on both hunter-gatherer culture, but also a Sumerian god from the Bronze Age as well. I did an episode of that I talked about the history of Heracles on my TikTok channel, which I think is called Meg Sullivan History, if you want to check it out. I should do an episode here as well. Wait, maybe I did do an episode. Hold on. I'll have to put that in post if I did. Pretty sure I did. At any rate, I'm being silly. So the Dorians, the Spartans, claim to be descendants of Heracles, and these twin grandsons or great-grandsons of Heracles could also represent the two kings, or the lineage of the two kings of Sparta. Historically, however, the two Spartan kings don't really come into focus until the 8th century BCE, when there's a lot of problems going on. What do I want to do within Sparta, right? Like campus. It's what they're recommending. I don't know if that's a good idea. I could do a wonder. I get 2+ housing. I think people were unhappy because I don't have. How's my housing? Like, how is all this? I don't pay attention to these numbers, and I really, really should. But there's so much to talk about. There's so much going on. No, there's that. Civics tree, tech tree, religion. Okay. Nope. Okay. We're going to... I'm getting nervous. I feel like no one's around to defend Sparta. I'm going to produce a hoplite. A hoplite or a slinger? A warrior. Okay, we'll split the difference with a warrior. Okay. Because I'm getting nervous. I feel like I'm not paying attention, so I need to play defensively, even though I'm aggressively expanding like Sparta will do, which leads me right back into the discussion of, in the 8th century BCE, there's internal strife in Sparta. So there are the two kings in Sparta. But then there is a council of elders called the Gerousia. The Gerousia are actually mentioned in N00b Bronze Age tablets. So it's an old type of council of elders. You had to be 60 or over to be a part of it. So there were 28 elder statesmen and the two kings of Sparta that could draft laws, essentially create laws, and then have the public assembly vote on these laws. However, there's another institution, a board of magistrates known as the ephors, and their entire existence seemed to be ruining the Spartan king's day. They were there to sort of take the kings to task if they didn't behave well, and they tripped up their policies all the time. It's kind of this whole big drama. Yikes, you gotta get these, we gotta get this dude. All right, come over here. Okay, you, oh dear. Okay, maybe if I take you closer, can I link you to, oh, I already used a turn, I think, so that was dumb. All right, we'll fortify you though. But the board of ephors were there solely to trip up the kings, the kings over time sort of lost their power. They were the head of the army, so they, up until the 5th century BCE, they went to war together, and they were also the pontiffs of the city-state. So they were the head of religious institutions. The Spartans were famously religious and very pious. Brussels. Oh, hi, Brussels. I should be paying more attention to envoys sent. Do I have a way of sending envoys? There's like a way to do this. Hold on. I have all these different places, but I don't have any envoy points. At any rate, so there was Spartan kings, the board of ephors, and the Gerousia, the council of elders, and they're all rich people, either allying themselves with each other or bickering with themselves. But there were a lot of poor people in Sparta, right? The rich owned all the land, and everyone else was, they didn't have much of a say. And there was some sort of internal strife in Sparta at this time. And the Spartans decided that one way to deal with their problems was just to grab more land so that everyone could be happy and they could have their own patch of land that would bring in produce and agriculture, and then people could be rich from that. So how does Sparta go about doing this? Rather unconventionally. They pick a fight with their neighbors, the Messenians, on the other side of Mount Taygetus, and the two go to war, and Sparta wins. And what's controversial about their win, as we enter turn 61, is that these Spartans enslave their neighbors. This was a big no-no in a world where slavery was very common, tragically enough. And the unspoken rule, however, was that you don't enslave your own people, you enslave some type of foreigner. Well, the Spartans were like, whatever, we're going to enslave our neighbors. Their neighbors, by the way, outnumbered them quite a bit. But the Spartans won the war, and they enslaved the Messenians and called them helots, or slaves. And these people were forced to work their own land and then turn over all of their produce to the Spartans. So all of their wealth and power to the Spartans. Of course, it wasn't that long before a rebellion broke out, and there was a second Messenian war, but the Spartans won that as well. So they really doubled down on the idea of owning their fellow Greeks. However, get him. This caused Sparta to realize that they were outnumbered upwards of 7-1 when it came to their slaves. And in order for them not to get crushed by their own slave population, right? Like they're always afraid of a rebellion in their backyard. Starting around this time in, the 7th, 6th century BCE, Sparta starts turning into a military camp, essentially. So in the 8th, 7th century BCE, sorry, I'm like trying to read the map and talk at the same time. So, but in the Archaic period is what I'm trying to say. Sparta decides to become a military camp. Now, Sparta has a whole legend about a lawmaker named Lycurgus, which means wolf worker, coming up with the idea of creating a military institution, a military academy, which all Spartan males had to attend. So from the age of 7 until 20, you had to go to this military academy. So you spent your whole youth training to be a warrior. And then once you graduated, quote unquote, from military academy, you were required to join a military mess hall. And the thing is, you could only do so if you could afford it. First, you had to be voted into a mess hall, which was a great honor, right? Anyone could blackball you, but if you made it in, you were part of this elite military group known as a homoioi, the peers, the people who are similar or equal to each other. But you had a mess fee that you had to pay. It was very expensive. So really, we're talking about, when I say the Spartan military elite, I do mean elite in the sense of they're also usually sons of wealthy people. If you couldn't afford your mess dues, you could be kicked out of the mess. However, you could still be part of like auxiliary or supporting troops to Sparta, but you wouldn't be part of the elite necessarily anymore. Speaking of which, should I build a wonder? I feel like I should. Let's build something wondrous. 2 production, 1 corn. That seems kind of good for production. I don't know if I want to. This has 2 corn. This just has 1 corn. I don't know if production is better for me or food. We'll do this one and then we'll build it. No. I don't really know what the Hanging Gardens has to do with ancient Greece. This is a very ancient Mesopotamian thing, but whatever. But at any rate, so Sparta becomes a military camp in the sort of mid-archaic period. And even that isn't quite enough, right? Like, people have their land in Messenia, but then Sparta has been so successful against the Helots, and they might still be having a bit of internal strife, or something's going on because they decide to try and expand northward to a place I think is called Tegea, and they get spanked. And this happens in like the, I want to say sometime in the 6th century BCE, 7th, 6th century BCE, at a place, I think 6th century BCE, And I think the battle is called the Battle of Fetters. But anyway, Sparta kind of loses that. That didn't work. So they try a sneakier policy. They appropriate mythical relics from Tegea and claim them as their own, as if to say your land is ours and your heritage is ours, and your heritage goes all the way back to the Bronze Age, and we're taking it now. Because remember, the Spartans are now mostly Dorian, right? So they don't have an exact claim to Homer's Bronze Age heroes like Achilles and, of course, King Menelaus of Sparta, etc., etc. So we need to improve Argos. I don't know if we need builders. I've been ignoring Argos, which is a very Spartan thing to do, but I really feel like they need some improvements. You know what? We'll do a builder here. I don't know if that's the right move or not, but I'm just trying to survive at this point. And yikes, I better get going on that. So, warrior needs... Okay, this warrior might have to also help out, even though I don't like leaving Argos undefended. You're way over here. All right, let's continue to be stupid and just keep exploring. We're being aggressive expansionists like the Spartans start to do in, starting in the 8th century, but we really get going in the 6th century BCE. They try to fight their neighbors, they lose, so they do a bit of cultural appropriation. They take the bones of Orestes that are somewhere in Tegea, they bring them home to Sparta, and they're like, okay, your hero is our hero now, and we can claim the same heritage, and we're awesome. And Tegea's like, not cool, bro. But they're much more afraid of Argos. Argos is another powerful city-state. They were also a Bronze Age culture that was emerging from the Dark Ages. And they were rivals of Sparta, especially starting around this time, because Sparta and Argos were like nibbling at other people's territory and starting to butt heads over it. So Tegea actually ended up allying itself with Sparta if Sparta would ally themselves against places like Argos. And then Sparta's like, hey, a lot of people don't like Argos. So they went around making different treaties with different people in the Peloponnese, and they started forming what we call today the Peloponnesian League, which was really the Lacedaemonians and their allies. That's what it was called in antiquity. And that was fight. That was the beginning of an aggressive expansionist policy on Sparta's part. These expansionist policies, by the way, started with, if we go to Queen Gorgo here, her grandfather Anaxandridas II. So Anaxandridas II started these very clever policies in which he would make these treaties with these different neighbors of Sparta. But it's really Gorgo's father who will get very aggressive, and he's very controversial. So much so that people can't decide if he was a mad genius or just mad. Cleomenes is one of my favorite Spartans to talk about. He is utterly fascinating, and I can't wait to talk about him in the next episode. I don't think we'll have time to quite cover King Cleomenes here. He in himself is an episode, but he's exemplary of the paradoxical thing where Sparta is very aggressive in terms of being expansionist, but also very cautious. They don't really want to go too far from Sparta for too long. They are afraid of the Helots, the slaves, rebelling against them if they go too far afield, right? The whole purpose of them being a military camp was because they were afraid their slaves would rebel against them. So that's kind of the underlying purpose. Oh, we have a new friend. Oh my goodness. Am I here to share my enlightenment? Sure, I guess. Nice to meet you. I would love to sample some of your hospitality. I'm far from home and have no idea where I'm going. Okay, we found a new civilization in the Congo. Sweet. Very, very cool. The Congo is nowhere near ancient Sparta, but you know, we're just gonna roll with it. It's cool. It's fine, right? What I'd like to do is have more settlers, though. So we got Sparta, we got Argos, but I need more settlements, right? Like, I need an Athens, I need a Corinth, I need a Tegea, one of Sparta's immediate neighbors. We gotta do that. Okay, we managed to get rid of these. Oh, we got to get this barbarian scout, though. We got to do it. We're going to fortify him for now. All right, we're going to continue exploring because I'm really curious about the map. We're heading towards Brussels, it looks like, which is hilarious. All right, let's see what everyone's doing on the map. I got to zoom out. The map is starting to get pretty big, but we got to get the scout. We got to get rid of him. Uh-oh, there is a barbarian camp. Oh, we got him in a bit of a pincer, though. Major victory. All right, let's go pick a fight with these dudes. Great, fabulous. And of course, we have that +5 strength against barbarians. That works out very nicely. And it's interesting because who are barbarians? Where does that word come from? It comes from the Greek bar. Any foreigner who didn't speak Greek was called a barbarian. And the Greeks mostly fought amongst themselves during the Archaic period, but starting in the late Archaic period, they were bumping up against the formidable Persian Empire. Starting in the middle of the 6th century BCE, so around 550 BCE, is the rise of Cyrus the Great, who starts putting together an empire that reaches all the way to the west coast of Turkey, which was then Anatolia, and that bumps up against different Greek colonies that were around that area at that time. So, ooh, major defeat. We need to retreat. Never mind. I was going to try to be cool, and that didn't work. Can I get rid of you, though? Yes, I can. Let's do that. All right, we'll zoom in a little bit. Hey, a promotion is available. I keep forgetting to promote these guys. That's not good. All right, I guess I have to do that next turn. Please remind me to do that. There's so many things going on, and I'm talking this whole time about history, and I'm missing important vital cues. But that just makes this more of a nail biter, right? Like, can I survive all of this if I'm not paying attention? Probably not, but we're going to try. Who needs orders? This warrior needs orders. Can I take you out? Yes. Minor victory, but a victory nonetheless. I got to make more warriors here. It's not the smartest that I've done. Once again, promotion is available. Can I promote you at all? No. I guess we'll just fortify you now because I don't know quite what to do with you. We're going to get rid of you, though, because you're a pain in the butt. I'm going to zoom this in. All right. There we go. But starting in the mid-6th century BCE, the Persian Empire is founded and starts expanding rather quickly. There is a story in Herodotus that the Spartans try to threaten Cyrus the Great by going over to one of his posts on the west coast of Turkey. I think they went to Sardis on the west coast of Turkey and Lydia, and they were like, hi, we're the Spartans, and you're threatening our neighbors, and you don't want to mess with us, so back off. And Cyrus was like, who? Who are you? He just basically laughed in their faces. Which they weren't prepared for, the Spartans. But the Spartans didn't really do anything, but the Athenians would get caught up in a rebellion of what was called the Ionian Revolt. I'm skipping a little bit ahead in terms of time here, a few decades. But they would get into trouble because they would try to help these Ionian city-states, they're on the west coast of Turkey, free themselves from Cyrus the Great. And it didn't go well at all, and Athens ended up getting on the radar of another Persian king later known as Darius the Great. But I am skipping a little bit ahead here, so I do want to sort of rewind it back to 15% production towards ancient and classical wonders. I gotta do the basics here though, because I've been talking so much. I feel like I'm missing the basics, and that's not good. I probably need to go back to... I haven't really done anything for this yet. I don't know what I'm doing, you guys. I'm sorry, it's really hard to play this game. And battle cry, please. Yes. 2 wonders completed. And concentrate on the game and then concentrate on the history. But Sparta is expanding in the 6th century BCE. And it really gets going with Anaxandridas II. But then his son, King Cleomenes, comes along. And Cleomenes, like I said before, is a very controversial king. And he almost wasn't king because of this whole big family drama. So King Anaxandridas dies between 530 BCE and 520 BCE. He's got 4 sons: King Cleomenes, Prince Dorius, or I said King Cleomenes. So Cleomenes, Dorius, Leonidas, yes, that Leonidas, and Cleombrotus. And Leonidas and Cleombrotus might have actually been twins. But it's interesting. So King Anaxandridas is an interesting character. He, and this happened a lot in antiquity, it's kind of disturbing, but to keep power within the family, to keep the dynasty going, people often married like their cousins or their aunts or their uncles. And so King Anaxandridas had married his own niece. Not surprisingly, they didn't actually have a lot of kids. In fact, they had none. And years passed, and finally, the council, not the council of elders, but the ephors, the magistrates, told the king, is like, yo, you have to have a kid. You have to have an heir to the throne, or this isn't going to work. And so the king refused to divorce his wife. And even though they weren't polygamous, hey, we reached the classical era finally. And we had some ironworking that was learned. Sweet. King Anaxandridas was like, I'm not going to divorce my wife, but if you want, I will take on a second wife. And the state reluctantly agreed to that. And Anaxandridas took a woman who was part of a powerful family, took a second wife, and she did have a son. That was Cleomenes. But weirdly, not long after that, like a year or two later, the first wife miraculously has a son, and then has 2 more sons after that. And this created a rivalry between the 2 eldest sons, Cleomenes and Dorius, when King Anaxandridas died. And it caused this whole chain of events to happen, which culminated in King Cleomenes doing all sorts of things that expanded Sparta's power, but ultimately ended in his murder. It's a crazy story. I can't wait to tell you guys that, but I think I'm going to wrap things up because we're almost to turn 75. You know what? I am trying to decide what I want to do. Is it writing? I should probably learn sailing. We do have a lot of water. Boosted, found a city on the coast. Okay, so maybe it'll do it on its own. I don't know. 3 turns. That's pretty fast. 6 turns, 3 turns. Courtesy, 15 turns. Blah. You know what? We should probably learn how to row a boat. We'll do that for now. But at any rate, there is this whole drama as to who gets to be king, Dorius or Cleomenes. Cleomenes is the eldest son, but he is not the eldest son of the first wife. So people start arguing semantics. And it's this big sort of crazy story that leads to Cleomenes, again, being a major expansionist and also getting murdered, and also King Leonidas famously marching to Thermopylae. It's amazing how all these things cause a chain of events to happen that change Western history, which is kind of exciting, right? It's exciting to talk about, but it's also weird to talk about, right? Like, there's a lot of, what if this had happened or what if this had happened? There's a lot of speculation that you could do when it comes to the Spartans. But it's about the 6th century and the 5th century BCE where, due to people like Anaxandridas II and due to Cleomenes I, and then Sparta reaches its peak again with like Agesilaus II a century later. It's their policies that we think of when we think of Sparta, or things that happen under their reign that help us sort of imagine what Sparta was like in the archaic and classical periods. However, we have somehow managed to survive 25 more turns. I'm going to do next turn, and we are officially on turn 75. Things aren't looking great for Sparta. There's so many things that I've neglected because I've been talking nonstop about history, and we're getting further away from Sparta, and we are desperately in need of making allies with these smaller sort of city-states, which I have not been paying attention to, and I've not been doing the right amount of production, and monuments. This is kind of turning into a mess because I've turned this back into a history lesson. But bear with me. I will try to right the ship when we start with part 75, or turn 75. So thanks for joining me, guys. See you later.